It started as a headache, then came the nausea, dizziness, and piercing ear pain. At first, doctors thought it was just stress or exhaustion. But when dozens of US diplomats and CIA agents reported the same symptoms, one after another, in completely different locations, it became clear something was terribly wrong. They called it Havana Syndrome. The first cases appeared in 2016 among US diplomats in Cuba. Victims described an invisible force, a sudden pressure in their heads, sometimes accompanied by a high-pitched ringing sound. Some collapsed instantly, others suffered from long-term brain damage. As the reports increased, theories exploded. Was this a new secret weapon? A foreign attack? A mass psychosis? Even the US government didn't have answers. Years later, Havana Syndrome remains one of the most baffling medical mysteries in modern history. And the scariest part? It's still happening. It all started in late 2016 at the US Embassy in Havana, Cuba. American diplomats stationed there began reporting strange, unexplainable symptoms. One diplomat woke up in his hotel room with an intense ringing in his ears. The sound wouldn't stop. The next day he felt dizzy, disoriented, and sick to his stomach. Another reported a sudden feeling of pressure inside his skull, as if his head was being squeezed. Then came the searing headaches and difficulty concentrating. At first, doctors suspected food poisoning, heat stroke, or even stress. But then more cases started appearing, not just in one hotel, but in multiple locations across Havana. Some victims reported hearing a strange high-pitched noise right before the symptoms hit. Others said they felt a beam of energy hitting their heads. By early 2017, dozens of US officials and their families were affected. The embassy went on high alert, and US intelligence agencies got involved. Something was happening to their diplomats, but no one knew what. Then the cases started spreading, beyond Cuba. At first, Havana Syndrome seemed like a Cuba-only mystery. But by 2018, the exact same symptoms started appearing in other countries. US diplomats in China reported feeling sudden dizziness, nausea, and ear pain, just like the victims in Cuba. Some heard the same high-pitched noise before the symptoms hit. Then, cases appeared in Russia, Germany, Austria, and even the United States itself. By 2021, CIA officers and White House staff members started reporting the same experiences. Some said they were walking down the street when they suddenly felt as if their brains were being microwaved. Others collapsed without warning, later suffering from memory loss, confusion, and permanent neurological damage. The US government ramped up investigations, but they still had no answers. No one saw an attacker. There were no weapons, no signs of poisoning, no known viruses. Just unexplained brain injuries that looked like trauma from a severe concussion. Something or someone was targeting US officials worldwide. But the biggest question was, who was behind it? With no clear cause and no suspects, the hunt for answers began. The US government launched classified investigations, and experts scrambled to explain what was happening. One of the earliest theories? A sonic weapon. Some victims claimed they heard a high-pitched noise right before their symptoms started, leading some scientists to believe it could be a powerful sound-based attack. But there was a problem. Sound waves alone shouldn't be able to cause brain damage. Another theory pointed to microwave radiation. Researchers found that the symptoms of Havana Syndrome were strikingly similar to those caused by directed energy weapons, devices that use focused beams of radiation to disable targets. Some experts believed foreign intelligence agencies were testing a high-tech weapon on US diplomats. But who would be behind such an attack? Some fingers pointed at Russia, which has a history of developing radio frequency weapons. Others suspected China or Cuba, nations with tense relationships with the US government, but there was no hard proof, and all of these countries denied any involvement. Then came the strangest theory of all. Was it all in their heads? Some scientists suggested mass hysteria, a psychological phenomenon where a group of people experience real symptoms due to shared anxiety or fear. But this didn't explain the actual brain injuries found in victims. With no solid evidence and no confirmed suspects, Havana Syndrome remained a terrifying mystery. But in 2023, the US government finally released a shocking report, one that changed everything. With over 1,500 reported cases of Havana Syndrome, by 2023, the US government couldn't ignore it any longer. Intelligence agencies, including the CIA, FBI, and the Pentagon, launched a top-secret investigation to uncover the truth. At first, the results were classified, but leaks revealed that officials were seriously considering the possibility of a foreign attack. They even offered financial compensation to affected personnel, a sign that they believed something real had happened. But in March 2023, the U.S. intelligence community released a controversial report, one that shocked everyone. According to their findings, Havana Syndrome was not caused by a foreign adversary. Their report stated that there was no clear evidence of microwave weapons, sonic attacks, or any kind of coordinated effort by Russia, China, or any other nation. The public was stunned. How could they rule this out after years of investigations? Many victims rejected the report, claiming the government was hiding the truth, or simply didn't want to admit that their enemies had outsmarted them. Some accused intelligence agencies of a cover-up, saying they didn't want to admit that U.S. personnel had been successfully targeted. Others, however, believed the simplest explanation. Havana Syndrome was a mix of psychological effects, pre-existing conditions, and environmental factors. But if that was the case, why did so many victims suffer real brain injuries? And why did some cases only happen in the highly classified locations? The government had spoken, but the mystery wasn't over. Because even after the report was published, new cases of Havana Syndrome kept appearing. Even after the U.S. government officially dismissed the idea of an attack, the cases didn't stop. In late 2023, a U.S. intelligence officer traveling overseas reported the exact same symptoms: sudden dizziness, nausea, piercing head pain, and confusion. The officer was in a high-security location, far from the public. No one could explain how it happened. Then, in 2024, multiple new cases were reported inside the United States itself. Some of the victims, White House staff members. The fact that these incidents kept occurring, years after the first cases in Havana, only fueled speculation that the government wasn't telling the full truth. So, what do experts believe now? Some still insist that microwave or directed energy weapons were used, but the attackers covered their tracks. Others believe it's a government cover-up, claiming officials know the truth but refuse to reveal it. A few still argue that it's mass hysteria, though this fails to explain the physical brain injuries found in some victims. And then there's the strangest theory of all, that Havana Syndrome is an entirely new, unknown phenomenon that science has yet to understand. Whatever the truth is, one fact remains. The world still doesn't have a definitive answer. After nearly a decade of investigations, theories, and government reports, the truth about Havana Syndrome is still unknown. The U.S. government claims there's no evidence of an attack, but that hasn't stopped victims, scientists, and intelligence officials from questioning the official story. What we do know is that over 1,500 people have reported symptoms, ranging from headaches and nausea to permanent brain injuries. Some cases occurred in highly classified locations, far from the public. Others happened in broad daylight, with no obvious explanation. If Havana Syndrome is just psychological, why do some victims have medical scans showing real damage? And if it was an attack, how could so many intelligence agencies fail to find proof? In the end, the mystery remains unsolved. But one thing is certain: whoever or whatever is behind Havana Syndrome, they aren't finished yet. Havana Syndrome remains one of the most baffling modern mysteries. Was it a foreign attack, a classified weapon, or something we still don't understand? The U.S. government may have closed its investigation, but with new cases still appearing, the truth might be far from over. What do you think? Was Havana Syndrome a real attack, a government cover-up, or just mass hysteria? Let me know in the comments. And if you thought this story was insane, wait until you hear about the woman who was declared dead, only to wake up inside her own coffin. Her family thought they were burying her until they heard knocking from inside the casket. Click here to watch, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos that prove what happens when logic fails.